The knock came just after sunset, sharp and sudden, breaking the calm of the house. Ion froze in the hallway, his phone still in his hand, a half-read message glowing on the screen. He wasn't expecting anyone. His wife Sarah had texted earlier, saying she would be late again. Meetings, deadlines, the same excuses that had become normal over the past few months. The house was quiet in a way that felt heavier than usual, like it was holding its breath. The knock came again, firmer. This time Ion moved toward the door with a strange tightness in his chest, a feeling he couldn't explain. When he opened it, he saw Imran, the neighbor from next door. Imran stood stiffly, hands clasped together, eyes restless. He looked like a man who had rehearsed this moment 100 times and still wasn't ready. "I'm sorry to come like this," Imran said, "but I think you deserve to know." Those words landed harder than the knock. Ayan stepped aside and let him in. They sat in the living room, the same room where birthdays had been celebrated and arguments had ended in laughter. Now it felt unfamiliar, like a place that no longer belonged to him. Imran didn't waste time. His voice was low, careful, as if each word could cut. He spoke about late nights, about seeing Sarah outside when she said she was working, about conversations that stopped the moment someone else appeared. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but enough to form a pattern. Ion listened without interrupting, his face calm while his thoughts raced. At first, denial wrapped around him like armor. People misunderstand things all the time. Neighbors, gossip, appearances lie. Then Imran showed him messages, short ones, careful ones. Words chosen to avoid suspicion, but full of meaning once you knew where to look. Ion felt something sink deep inside him, slow and heavy. It wasn't anger yet, it was recognition. When Imran finished, silence filled the room. He apologized again, said he didn't want to cause harm, said he would understand if Ion hated him for speaking up. Ion barely heard the words. His focus was on a single thought repeating in his mind. This didn't come out of nowhere. After Imran left, Ion didn't move. He sat there long after the door closed, staring at the wall, where a family photo hung slightly crooked. He remembered the early years of his marriage, how easy everything had felt. Sarah's laughter, her honesty, the sense that whatever happened, they were on the same side. That memory now felt distant, like it belonged to another man. He replayed recent months in his head, the missed dinners, the distracted replies, the way Sarah would smile at her phone and then quickly lock it. He had noticed these things but had chosen comfort over questions. Trust had made him careless. The sound of keys at the door pulled him back. Sarah walked in, tired but alert, as if she had already sensed a shift in the air. She paused when she saw him sitting there, waiting. "We need to talk," Ion said. The words were calm, but the space between them was charged. Sarah sat down slowly. She didn't ask what this was about. That told him everything. He told her what Imran had said, watched her face change, watched the small movements that revealed more than words ever could. She tried to explain at first, said it wasn't what it looked like, said it was harmless. But her voice shook, and the truth pressed in from all sides. Eventually, she stopped denying it. She said she hadn't planned for it to happen. She said she had felt lonely, unseen, like she was disappearing inside her own life. She said the attention felt safe, that it made her feel understood. She insisted nothing physical had happened, as if that detail could undo the damage to Ion. It didn't matter. Betrayal wasn't measured only by actions but by choices. Every message, every secret moment had been a decision made without him. He asked one question, the only one that mattered. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" Sarah didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her silence had already said enough. That night, the house split into quiet territories. Sarah took the guest room. Ion stayed where he was, surrounded. by memories that now felt sharp. Sleep didn't come. His mind kept moving, jumping from moment to moment, searching for the exact point where things had gone wrong. He felt humiliated not because others might know, but because he had believed so completely. As the hours passed, something inside him hardened. Pain slowly gave way to focus. He thought about fairness, about consequences. He thought about how easily trust had been broken and how little it seemed to matter to the people who broke it. A part of him wanted to shout, to expose everything, to make sure no one walked away untouched. By morning, his reflection in the mirror looked older. Not weaker, but changed. He realized this wasn't just about loss. It was about dignity. About whether being kind meant being silent, or whether silence only protected those who caused harm. When Sarah left for work, they didn't say much. The distance between them felt final, even if nothing had officially ended. Ion watched her go, then locked the door behind her. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt loaded, like the pause before something breaks. He sat down and opened his laptop. Not to work, not to distract himself, but to think, to understand what he wanted next. Revenge wasn't yet a plan, but it was a presence, a shadow forming at the edge of his thoughts, waiting for him to turn toward. The knock from the night before echoed in his memory. It had brought the truth to his door without warning, without mercy. Now that truth demanded a response. Ion knew one thing for certain. He could never go back to who he was before that knock. Whatever came next would be a choice, and choices, he had learned, change everything. The days after the truth came out moved fast on the outside and painfully slow inside Ion's head. He went to work, answered emails, spoke when spoken to, but everything felt distant. Like he was watching his own life from behind glass. At night, the house stayed quiet. Sarah tried to speak once or twice, but Ion avoided long talks. Words felt dangerous. If he spoke too much, anger might spill out. If he spoke too little, she might believe silence meant forgiveness. Revenge began as a thought, not a decision. It appeared in small flashes. While driving, he imagined confronting the man Sarah had leaned on. While lying awake, he imagined telling everyone the truth. Not to shout, not to insult, but to expose. He wanted the weight he carried to be shared. He wanted fairness. If he was hurting, why should others stay comfortable? At work, Ion found it harder to focus. Numbers blurred. Meetings felt pointless. He caught himself staring at his phone, rereading old messages from Sarah, searching for the moment honesty disappeared. Each discovery fed the same feeling. He had been made a fool without his consent. Imran tried to keep his distance, but guilt pulled him back. One evening, he sent a short message asking if Ion was okay. Ion stared at the screen for a long time before replying. He typed and deleted several responses. Finally, he wrote a simple, "I don't know," which was the most honest answer he had. Imran carried his own weight of regret. He believed telling the truth was right, but now he wondered if he had destroyed more than he fixed. He replayed the night of the knock again and again, questioning his motives. Had he spoken up to protect Ion, or to ease his own discomfort? The answers shifted depending on the hour. Sarah, meanwhile, lived in constant tension. She felt watched even when Ion said nothing. His calm frightened her more than shouting would have. She told herself she hadn't meant for things to go this far. In her mind, emotional closeness didn't count as real betrayal. She convinced herself that loneliness had pushed her there, that she had been neglected, that her pain mattered too. Yet every time she saw Ion's distant eyes, her justifications felt thin. Ion began to gather facts, not out of habit, but instinct. He saved messages, dates, small details that formed a clear picture. Each piece gave him a sense of control he badly needed. Planning became his way of breathing. While others slept, he sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, mind sharp. He wasn't sure yet what he would do with the information. He only knew he didn't want to be powerless again. Still, doubt followed him closely. He questioned himself late at night. Would exposing the truth heal him, or would it lock him forever to this pain? He imagined the moment of confrontation, the silence after, the looks on people's faces, the brief rush of satisfaction. Then what? Would the house feel warmer? Would trust return? Or would he simply be standing in new ruins? One afternoon, Ion met an old friend for coffee. The conversation stayed light at first, but eventually the truth surfaced. He didn't give details. He didn't need to. His friend listened quietly, then said something simple. Be careful. Anger feels useful, but it asks for a lot in return. The words stayed with him. At home, the tension thickened. Sarah tried harder. She cooked meals he barely touched. She asked if he wanted to talk. Each time, he said, not yet. The distance between them grew heavy, filled with things unsaid. She feared losing him, but fear didn't erase what she had done. She wanted forgiveness without fully facing the damage. Ion noticed everything. The way she watched him, the way she flinched when his phone buzzed. Part of him felt powerful. Knowing the truth had shifted control. Another part felt sickened by that feeling. He didn't like who he was becoming. Revenge now felt closer, more real. He imagined setting up a meeting. Not emotional, not loud, just facts laid out cleanly. He imagined forcing honesty into the open, where it could no longer hide behind excuses. The thought steadied him. Planning gave shape to the chaos inside. But as the plan formed, so did resistance. He remembered the man he used to be, patient, fair, someone who believed in fixing things rather than breaking them. Was revenge justice, or was it just pain changing direction? Imran asked to meet. They sat on a park bench, distant from other people. Imran apologized again, his voice tired. Admitted he hadn't slept well since that night. Ion listened without judgment. For the first time, he saw Imran not as a trigger, but as another person caught in the mess. I don't expect forgiveness, Imran said. I just didn't want you living a lie. Ion nodded. Now I'm living with the truth, and I don't know what to do with it. That night, Ion dreamed of standing at a door. Behind it was noise, chaos, shouting. His hand hovered over the handle, unsure whether to open it or walk away. He woke up with his heart racing, the decision still waiting. Days passed. The plan sharpened, then dulled, then sharpened again. Set a date in his mind. He imagined how it would unfold. Yet every time he came close to committing fully, something stopped him. A memory, a feeling, a quiet voice asking what kind of ending he wanted. Sarah finally broke. One evening, she cried openly, no defenses left. She admitted she had been selfish. She admitted she had avoided hard conversations and chosen comfort instead. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for honesty about whether he could ever look at her the same way. Ion didn't answer right away. He realized then that revenge wasn't just about punishment. It was about reclaiming his sense of worth. The question was whether hurting others was the only way to do that. As night fell, he sat alone again, staring at the evidence he had collected. It felt heavy now, not empowering. He understood something clearly for the first time. Revenge would be easy compared to living with the consequences of choosing it. The conflict inside him reached its peak. One path promised release but risked regret. The other promised uncertainty but left room for growth. He knew the moment of decision was coming fast. Whatever he chose would define not just what happened next, but who he would become after. The day of the decision arrived quietly, without warning signs or dramatic buildup. Ion woke before dawn, his mind clear in a way it hadn't been for weeks. The weight in his chest was still there, but it had settled into something steady, like a stone he had learned to carry. He stood by the window and watched the street come alive, people stepping into their routines, unaware that his world was balanced on a single choice. He had set everything in motion. Messages sent. A meeting arranged. Not out of anger, but precision. If revenge was going to happen, it would be clean, controlled, and undeniable. No shouting, no chaos. Just truth placed where it could no longer hide. Sarah noticed the change in him that morning. He moved with purpose, spoke less than usual. She asked where he was going. He said he needed time. She nodded, knowing better than to ask more. The meeting. Place was simple, neutral, ordinary. That was intentional. Ion arrived early and sat alone, hands resting on the table, breathing slow. He felt strangely calm. This was the moment he had imagined so many times that it almost felt familiar. One by one, they arrived. Sarah, tense and pale. The man she had trusted with her secrets, avoiding Ion's eyes. Imran, hesitant, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. The air felt tight, like the room itself understood what was about to happen. No one spoke at first. Ayan looked at each of them carefully. Not with anger, but focus. He saw fear, guilt, and defensiveness. He also saw himself reflected back at him, the damage shared among them all. He began to speak. His voice was calm, steady, carrying none of the rage they expected. He laid out the truth in clear, simple words. Dates, moments, choices. He didn't exaggerate or accuse. He didn't insult or threaten. He let the facts do the work. As he spoke, the tension shifted. What he had imagined as power felt different in reality. There was no rush, no thrill. Just a heavy silence filling the room. Sarah tried to explain again, but Ion raised a hand gently, stopping her. I know why you say it happened, he said. I don't need the reasons anymore. I needed honesty when it mattered. The man across the table finally spoke, trying to defend himself, saying he never meant to cross a line. Ion listened, then nodded. Intent doesn't erase impact, he replied simply. Imran said little. His eyes stayed on the table. He looked smaller somehow, worn down by the weight of what had followed his decision to speak up. This was the point where Ion had planned to go further, to expose everything publicly, to ensure consequences that matched his pain. You felt that? Option waiting, ready to be used, instead. Something unexpected happened. He felt tired. Not weak, not unsure. Just tired of carrying anger like fuel. He realized in that moment that revenge had already taken too much from him. Sleep, peace, focus. Time taking more would only deepen the lost. He closed the folder in front of him. I didn't bring you here to destroy anyone, he said. The room went still. I brought you here because I needed to know if I could face the truth and still choose who I want to be. No one spoke. They waited. Ayan stood up. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice stayed firm. This is where it ends. Not because it didn't hurt. Not because it doesn't matter. But because I won't let this define the rest of my life. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She reached out, then stopped herself. The man beside her looked shocked, as if he had prepared for punishment and didn't know what to do with mercy. Imran finally looked up. Relief and confusion mixed on his face. Ion walked out without another word. The air outside felt different. Lighter, he took a deep breath and realized it was the first full breath he had taken in weeks. The choice he made didn't erase the betrayal, but it loosened its grip. The days that followed were not easy. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. Ion felt waves of doubt, moments where he questioned if he had been too soft. But each time those thoughts came, he reminded himself that strength wasn't always loud. He and Sarah spoke honestly for the first time in a long while. Not to fix everything, but to understand what had broken. Some conversations ended in silence. Others ended in tears. They talked about boundaries, about respect, about whether rebuilding was possible or parting ways was the kinder truth. There were no quick answers. Ion focused on himself. He returned to routines he had abandoned. Morning walks, music, work. done with care instead of distraction. He noticed small things again, like the way sunlight hit the kitchen floor or how quiet evenings could feel peaceful instead of lonely. Imar and kept his distance, respecting the space Ion needed. When they did cross paths, there was a quiet understanding between them. No friendship, no hostility. It's closure. The man who had been part of the betrayal faded from Ion's life entirely. No confrontation followed. No public exposure. Absence itself felt like consequence enough. Weeks later, Ion sat alone in the same living room where it had all begun. The house no longer felt like a cage. It felt honest. Changed, but honest, he thought about revenge and what it had promised him. Power, balance, satisfaction. In the end, it had offered none of those things. What gave him peace was the choice to step away before anger shaped him into someone he didn't recognize. He understood now that revenge doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like refusing to carry someone else's guilt for the rest of your life. The knock that once shattered his sense of safety had forced him to confront a hard truth. People fail. Trust breaks. Pain arrives without asking permission. But what comes after is still a choice. Ion chose to walk forward, not untouched, but free. And that choice changed everything.